You may be seated. Good afternoon. Welcome to the celebration of our 151st anniversary of the founding of Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University. Today we celebrate the rich and storied history, and we honor the vision and courage and determination of our founder, Dr. William Hooper Council, and the countless men and women whose soldiers upon which we stand. Now, would you please stand for the singing of the national anthem? Thank you. You may be seated. We will now have greetings, which will be given by General Counsel of Snow County, followed by the responsive reading and invocation, which will be done by Pastor Willie Fred Diggs II.
Good morning. Good morning. I am delighted to welcome you to the Founders Day Convocation, commemorating the 151st year of the founding of Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University. Today we gather to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. William Hooper Council, the visionary leader who sparked the flame and lit the torch of what was originally named the Colored Normal School at Huntsville with 61 students and has now evolved into what we know today, the largest HBCU in the state of Alabama that sits prominently on Normal's Hill. We salute Dr. Council for his commitment to education, his advocacy as a legislator and a lawyer, and his servant leadership through his ministry as a founding father of the St. John AAMU Church. Today's celebration is more than a commemoration. It is a celebration of excellence, resilience, and the continued pursuit of knowledge. As we honor our past, we are reminded of our responsibility to carry the legacy forward, enlightening future generations to lead and to serve. As we come together, let us not only remember where we started, but to look forward to our impact as we carry the torch forward. So, to the students, faculty, and staff, alumni, and friends of our beloved AAMU, I wish you a happy Founders Day. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate 151 years of our rich heritage and press forward to a bold future. Long live thy fame, long live thy fame.
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Let us pray. Gracious and eternal God, we come before you with humble hearts, and our hands are lifted on this sacred occasion, the 151st Founders Day Convocation of Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University. We thank you for your divine guidance that has directed this institution from its humble beginnings to its present-day greatness. Lord, today we pause to honor and celebrate our founder's dream, a dream rooted in faith, vision, and unwavering belief that education could uplift people and transform communities. What was once only a vision has become a living legacy, and for that we give you praise. Thank you that this dream did not fade, but flourished through generations, standing today as a beacon of excellence, opportunity, and impact. We ask that you bless this convocation. Let your presence rest in this place on today as we reflect 151 years of purpose-filled fulfillment. Grant wisdom to our leaders, strengthen our faculty, and continue excellence to our students and staff members. May we never take for granted the sacred opportunity that you provided for us all. In your name we pray, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Attorney Conley and Pastor Diggs. We will now have the poem, The Old Normal Spirit, which will be recited by our Vice President of our Pre-Alumni Association, Ms. Nadia Dixon. Following the poem, we'll all stand with the University Choir as they sing the Black National Anthem, lift their voice and sing.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. AAMU, how blessed art thou on this memorable hill, whose life has sprung from within a dream, whose vision projects from a spirit untold, whose strength came from a man of old. This man knew no comfort, this man knew no love, yet he toiled unceasingly, untiringly, to inject into thine heart and spirit, so that a man can come from the boundaries of the world and partake of thine happiness. Thy streets bustled as thy birthday came, and the spirit could be felt as it transcended. Thy young men hustled, thy devotees stared in awe and wonder. Thy former children, young and old, conversed, welcoming this happy reunion. Thy students grinned aloud, others passed to and fro as if going nowhere. And in distance, thy drums could be heard, depicting the pangs of glee felt by many in days gone by. Hark, as I stopped to listen, the spirit was real. AAMU, thy life has started from a man of old, for in thy cafeteria grounds lay neatly beneath the tomb the frigid bones of majestic self-sufficiency and wonderful clarity. Thy staunch-looking man, the man of stamina, that man of excellence. But AAMU, did he mean for the old spirit to die? Did he mean for it to be substituted or counterfeited? There are reasons for thy presence on this hill. In the middle of thy grounds is the old spring of thy birth, the favorite meeting place of men and women of old, who after a long laborious day needed to be comforted. Here they would come smiling, though with knitted, work-worn brows, and rest on the rise behind the spring hangs the old bell, which since 1891 chimed ever so beautifully, outpouring the spirit of those happy yesteryears. Embedded in hearts of normalites are traditional landmarks: Palmer Hall, Hurt Hall, Langston Hall. I envisioned their eyes glistening, the Councils, the Drakes, the Thomases, the Elmores. When they talked of courting at the spring, fetching water in wee hours of the morning for breakfast Cable, and Langston Hall. I feel a sense of pride along with them as their womanhood and manhood were developed with the old normal spirit. Council meant for that spirit to live on. AAMU, are you still proud of your heritage? Do you feel the need to go forward for thy spirit never feared? Do you have the sense of togetherness for thy spirit never hated? That man of old, he meant for that old normal spirit to live on and on.
better than that. Give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our student participants. As we reorganize here for a few minutes, is everybody okay? Are you sure? Why you didn't bring somebody with you? Amen. This is Founders Day. Amen. Dr. Jones, where's the faculty? Both Jones. That's right. All right, I know y'all are here for the 150th, and so this is the 151st, so everybody want to take leave. But as we pivot very quickly here, we will now continue a series of discussions that we started a couple of years ago. And we've had several of our elders, for lack of a better term, and I don't want to insult them because one is sitting in the office, Dr. Elise Sims. Give her a round of applause. My sister, my friend, good to see you. But we've had panels with her and Reverend Dr. Oscar Montgomery and former President Dr. Carl Marbury. And I was very surprised as Dr. Marbury stepped to the mic at, 90 years old or so, and he was as erudite as he's ever been. And I'm very pleased to get that on record and on tape. And then we've had discussions with Dr. Montgomery, Dr. Jeanette Jones, also a senior professor on the campus, as well as Dr. Dorothy Houston, in discussing the history, legacy, and impact of our institution. Now we've moved to a little younger crew. And this younger crew has young lungs, so they have a lot to say. So if you got somewhere to be, I'm just tell you, might as well leave now. There's no timing on this Founders Day panel. There's no hard stop. This is Founders Day. And so we've asked these panelists to come here, and a couple have traveled from very long distance. And I want to try to extract as much rich information as we possibly can. Now, what's interesting about this is that they do not have the questions. I have not had a discussion with them prior to this except to invite. Am I lying? You know, if I'm lying, tell me I'm lying. No. All right, so this is organic. And there may be some critique, even of myself, as I ask these questions. And of course, at my age, you know, I really don't care about no critique. So, you know, let's go with it. But it is on tape. And I can't stop our audience from using their cell phones at this public institutions. But I would ask you, be careful what you post in this environment, because we need to have a family discussion about some things. And that's why we have these three panelists. One is the foremost expert on Reverend Dr. Counsel. He's wrote the definitive text. Which I'm encouraging everybody to get, not free, but purchase. And he's doing a new edition, Reverend Dr. William Hoover Counsel, the greatest Negro that the race ever produced. Please get your copy. If you have not read this once, twice, or in my case, 3 times, then don't tell me you're a real normalite. Amen. Because you talk about Dr. Counsel, but you don't know what's in it, because when I quiz you, you don't check it, read it. Now, I said that facetiously. Everybody who graduated and went to school here is a normalite. I just needed your response. Read the book. The second one is the state must provide. Why America's colleges have always been unequal and how to set them right, by Brother Adam Harris. And I don't know if he's doing a sequel to this, but he is working on another work that will be published pretty soon. So please, please, please get your copy of this and read it. It has some very, very rich historical information and perspective. I read it 3 times. I encourage you to read it. If you don't believe me, you come see it. It's red, marked up, question marks, critiqued, which I will not present in this forum, okay? But please read. So our first panelist is Attorney Don Calloway. He's an attorney, political strategist, and media contributor known for his work in law, public policy, and venture capital. A former member of the Missouri House of Representatives, he is a frequent commentator on MSNBC and CNN, and he focuses on impact investment and civic engagement. Mr. Eddie Davis, who's the author of the book that I just described, The Greatest Negro the Race Ever Produced, Mr. Adam Harris, a podcast host for The Atlantic and author of The State Must Provide, Why America's Colleges Have Always Been Unequal. Please get these books and read them. Well, as you know, we have an attorney, a journalist, and a civil servant author. They're very steeped in this discussion, but they're also steeped in the tradition of Normal Hills and this institution. All 3 attended and or graduated from this institution. Give them a warm round of applause. So to set the stage for this conversation, our first question goes to Attorney Calloway. There have been several pieces of legislation, from the Morrill Acts to the recent farm bills and the Knight v. Alabama case, which have directly affected our funding and progress and or lack thereof. Can you kind of give us, as an opening, how these legislative efforts and legal challenges have influenced educational equity and or lack thereof?
You say ain't no hard stop today, right? All right. Thank you all for having me. Always a blessing to be back on the Hill. Protocol having been established, all of our faculty and esteemed president. Thank you all. And to Dr. Carney and the music ministry for blessing us today and always. Thank you all. Listen, elated to be back. So from 1987 to 2020, state legislatures were allocated money from the Second Morrill Act. That's a federal statute, 1862, Morrill Act number 1. You can read all of this, by the way, in The State Must Provide by Adam Harris here. 1862, the Morrill Act 1 creates land-grant institutions. That's Auburn University, that's the University of Mississippi, that's the University of Missouri, where I'm from. 1890, what are we to do with 4 million freed Africans who also probably need to be educated, if only so they can create societies to keep them away from us? So let's create the Second Morrill Act in 1890, which creates the land-grant institutions. Well, throughout the history of the land-grant institution, Alabama A&M, Jackson State, Southern University, Alcorn State, Lincoln University in Missouri, the state has found ways to underfund and undermine their mission. They've never gotten every dollar that actually pertains to them or belongs to them, to us, shall we say, from the Second Morrill Act. We know that because we can look at ourselves as compared to Alabama Tech, AKA Auburn University. I can look at Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri, and compare it to University of Missouri, just 20 miles down the road in Columbia. Not only have we historically been underfunded, but there is academic research over the years that shows very specifically during a harm period from 1987 to 2020, the aggregate 19 southern states who have and house 1890 institutions underfunded them by an aggregate of about $12.6 billion. $527 million went to the Alabama General Fund or the Alabama Higher Education institutions outside of Alabama A&M during that period. That was our money. So the Morrill Act is good, and it is decent, and it had good intent. But we have watched Southern legislatures, by the way, most of them led by Democrats over the years during these particular harm periods, Democratic Attorney General, Democratic governors, Democratic state legislatures, which control the purse funds. We have watched those institutions do what the young folks call, make sure I'm using this right, play in our faces, right? So they have not only allocated sums to the general funds, they've not only allocated them to other institutions within the state's higher education system, but they did something around the 50s as our institutions began to grow and thrive and move into second and third generationship to show that we'll be here forever, they created the regional directional state university. So ain't no 150th anniversary for UAH. They didn't, what, that 1969?
61.
Yeah, something like that. Ain't no 150th for the University of Missouri at St. Louis, right? These are satellite institutions created to siphon resources away from HBCUs, 1890 land-grant institutions, which were made for our specific purposes. And after the GI Bill, in which the government committed into perpetuity to educate returning soldiers from war, that's billions of dollars coming in. We will absolutely not flow them directly to these black institutions. So that is the nature of the harm. So last week, I was spent my first day of this administration in the White House explaining to the Office of Public Liaison and the Department of Justice exactly where the harm was, exactly what it was done, and exactly what they owe to Virginia State, $277 million, Lincoln University, $361 million, North Carolina A&T, $1.2 billion, Alabama A&M, $527 million. Who else? University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, $276 million, an aggregate of $12.6 billion. So we have actively opened the matter.
Wait, hold, okay. I got another question on that.
Yes, sir.
Which is the
I
future,
can
so
talk about it all day.
That's the resolution part.
That's the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we gotten some progress? Absolutely. But are there still tremendous sums to be recovered? Absolutely. And as we sat and discussed with the White House, it was very clear that we were right on the facts, we were right on the law, and we were right on the history. And they said, looked at us steely cold in the face and said, we'll get back to you. And I reflected back as I closed to 1964, when Dr. King and Reverend Shuttlesworth and his cohorts brought matters of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1965 directly to President Lyndon Baines Johnson. And they were right on the facts, they were right on the history, and they were right on the law. And when they said, we'll get back to you directly in my face, I looked at the Office of Public Liaison and I knew that what he was saying to me was exactly what LBJ said to Dr. King in those days, which is, go make me do it. So I'm so elated to be here 1 week afterwards because this is our opportunity to make them do it. We are asking the administration, the Department of Justice, for our aggregate $12.6 billion. This president is a transactional one, and he never said no blacks need apply. He never said no alphabet community people need apply. He says come to us and make a deal. And we expect to be able to do that between now and hopefully the end of this calendar year. And I have no problem, and many of the 1890 presidents have no problem standing aside this administration or any administration who chooses to right historical wrongs and say that this is a great day for public education in America. So there's lots of work to be done. We are in the midst of that fight. Perhaps we're breaking news even to the president, but we have tried to protect our president so he can continue to steer this ship while other fights are happening throughout the country, and we will not harm Alabama A&M or this president or this administration in the process. So lots of work to be done, but the law is on our side, the history is on our side, and the facts are on our side, and now it's our time to collectively make them do it.
So we're going to circle back to that. We're going to circle back to that later on in the discussion, and thank you, Attorney Callaway, because you kind of encapsulate the what. But the real issue for some of us is the why. And so in your text, which is a similar work, nobody has done anything like the work that you've done, Mr. Harris, tell us, because you deal with some specifics within state and within region particularly as to why the southern states took this approach, and maybe kind of give us some context as to why. And then Attorney Callaway's statistics only go back to 1987. You see, but there were laws and agreements per state as to what the split would be between the 1862 and the 1890 that everybody agreed to. Can you give us some context on the why and then what that number would look like if we go back to 1900, say?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you. Thank you for having me. I have to go back to the 1700s to get us to where we are. Actually, first, I spent a lot of time when I was here at A&M over in Drake with Professor Diane Wilkinson, and she passed away recently. And she really just told me and taught me how to think for myself. And so I really appreciate her. I couldn't come back to campus without mentioning her and giving her her flowers of sorts. In 1740, South Carolina passed the first slave code, black code, right? And they made it a crime for enslaved people to learn how to read and write. You fast forward, Georgia follows suit a few years later. By the 1830s, Alabama had passed a law that would have fined people $500 for teaching an enslaved person to read. In that time, right, between 1740 and the 1830s, George Washington gives this address before Congress. This is 1790. It's his first functionally State of the Union address. And he tells Congress, right, in addition to needing to build out a naval capacity and needing to build, agricultural capacity, they needed a place to teach people how to be good citizens. And so he says this thing, he goes, "There is nothing that better deserves your patronage than the arts and the sciences, because knowledge in every country is the surest basis of public happiness." Because what they were trying to do was to cultivate a character for American society. But at the same time as they were cultivating this character, they were keeping that vital resource, that educational resource, away from black people. So, at every point of sort of national dissension, right, you go back to the sort of Civil War, you think about the War of 1812 when West Point gets additional funding, but you fast forward to the Civil War and you get the Morrill Act of 1862. Now, what this Morrill Act was functionally, right, it was 17 million acres of land expropriated from something like 250 indigenous tribes that states could sell in order to fund an institution. Now, as Don was mentioning, right, under this act, black people weren't really attending these colleges. You had most of the states saying things like in Mississippi, where not only did they not enroll any black students at the University of Mississippi, but the faculty said that we would rather resign and this institution close to enroll a black student, because white parents had gotten a little worried that their students would be going to school with black people. Some states did end up doing a little additional funding for black folks, right? You think about Alcorn State University, got a $50,000 appropriation in 1871. But as soon as you move out of the Reconstruction period into that redemption period, 1876, 1877, that appropriation gets reduced to $15,000 a year, gets reduced again to $5,500 a year. Meanwhile, University of Mississippi sort of doing what it's doing, right? So you start to see the development of an inequitable system, right? Now, 30 years on, you think about, I give you $1,000, tell you put it in the bank and I'll let it build. For 30 years, you have a nice little nest egg to sit on. But by 1890, those predominantly white institutions, almost all white institutions, were saying, hey, look at all the good we're doing. We're doing better than Harvard's doing. We're doing better than Yale is doing. We're educating the masses, right? There are places to train men in the art of manslaying. There are places to train lawyers and doctors, but there's not a place to train workers to learn. And so they said, look at all the good we're doing. We could do better with even more money. And so Congress is like, well, yeah, let's do it, 1890. Let's go ahead and pass this bill. But inside of it, there's a little quirk. It was introduced by a senator from Alabama that said institutions could not make a difference in the admission of students based on race, but they could either fund or support, build a new institution for black students. And so the thing that I think people often get misconstrued is that the 1890 Act was specifically for the HBCUs, when really it was so that the white college could get more money, but there was the 14th Amendment that said you have to do something for black students too. And so they put it in there and said that you can get this additional funding as well. As you move into the early 1900s, you start to see, you get a couple more pieces of legislation that says, hey, states, we're going to give you this money, but if we give you this money, you have to match it to the institutions. And by 1914, 1915, there's some senators from other states who are like, wait, it doesn't seem like these states that have these HBCUs or these black colleges are actually matching the land-grant funds. And so maybe we should pass a bill that says, like, just tell us what you're doing. Tell us where the money's going. And the Southern lawmakers say, actually, no, we got it. Don't worry about us. Our books are clean. And so we don't get that bill. And so you have a 100-year gap between around 1917 to 2017 when the Farm Bill goes into place, where you're actually forcing states to report whether or not they're doing that additional matching. So that gap in the actual knowledge about where the funding is really critical, because that 1987 number is important, right? That's what we can know, because that's when the Integrated Post-Secondary Educational Data System, IPEDS, went into effect, and states had to report their numbers. But you think about all of the discrimination that happened before 1987, all of the things that we can't know, or that we can know, but that are in state archives. And I think that is some of the work that is still necessary to be done as we're moving forward, right? Because we need to get what we need to get right now, but we also need to look at all of that additional underfunding over the years.
That's a hell of a statement you just made. We got to take what we can get right now, but there's a but. And that but has a multiplier effect, because maybe it should come with interest.
Yes.
And penalties. Right? So, that leads to a very controversial question, and I've challenged Normalites earlier because I know most of us have not read this book. If you read chapter 3, it will raise a lot of questions. And so now there's a nexus, 1876 versus 2026, comparison and contrast. And what Reverend Dr. Council had to do in 1876 for himself personally to survive, one, and then number two, for the institution to survive and sustain, both politically and administratively. So can you kind of compare the similarities and differences in the approach of Reverend Dr. Council in 1876 and his issues with both the Republican, which would now be the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party, which now is the Republican Party? Y'all know what I'm saying, right? Okay. Because after Lincoln, we were what? Class. When did we get to be Democrats? Okay, that's a whole nother lecture. That's right. And so what I'm asking him is to compare now. Y'all saw what just happened at South Carolina State. You've seen what was happening across the spectrum at other black colleges. There was a big fervor at Florida A&M last year, and all of us are having to wrestle with these issues. So look at that, and I'm giving you time to get your thoughts together here, so I'm filibustering, but look at the compare and contrast the differences and similarities in that time and this time and what we're encountering.
First of all, thanks for the opportunity. Again, Dr. Williams, glad to see everyone here. We look at the beginning of the institution, May 1st, 1875. Dr. Council, along with many blacks during this period, politically, let's say black men, because it was black men who had the right to vote during this period. And it would have been anything other than blasphemous to vote anything other than Republican, generally speaking, in the South. But as the Ku Klux Klan, after the Civil War, began to gain power and to regain their influence politically, it became pragmatic to remain a Republican, but yet still expect state funds to fund Negro schools in the South. The Klan was established just a few miles from the Huntsville community. In one second. When the university started in 1875, it was started with $1,000. During the period, we still had state Republican controlling the legislature. There was a tug of war, and the Democrats regained state control. So the question was, can you still remain a Republican and lead a Negro school in the South? That was one of the bigger fights. So council began advocating an independent Republican movement in Huntsville. The political black strongholds at the time, other than council, was the Brandon families, the Benfords, the Scruggs. If they didn't go along with the status quo, generally speaking, it wasn't gonna happen. So council was like a man on an island. he began advocating this independent Republican idea. It was an idea that was short-lived. So council began being a lone ranger, if you will, and he began advocating a Democratic strategy, not as a place where all of us should flock to the Democratic Party, but he believed if we're going to have any kind of political influence in the South, some of the black community would have to be Democrats as opposed to others would have to remain as Republicans. He believed we should be on the front end of both political parties so we can contribute who would represent either party and who would agree to do best regardless of what political outcome. He didn't get much support. So council would be essentially a lone ranger as a Democrat in the South, but he would do so to not only advocate, but hold on to those state appropriate funds to fund his school in the North.
Well, thank you for that perspective and that historical analysis. Something just hit me, and I'm gonna have to ask you guys, but particularly Mr. Harris and Attorney Callaway, and or whichever one, or both of you. That was a political move to garner votes and support, and he certainly had to go to the Democrats to get our land grant status and outflank both Washington and Patterson to do it, because organically you would have thought that Washington would have had the strength to land a land grant status at Tuskegee and or Patterson being in Montgomery, that he would have won. But yes, sir.
Well, I can speak to the land grant fight. The initial fight of the $1,000 was a tug of war for council to get the $1,000. Because if we look at the history of the university, it talks about, we actually were established December 9th, 1873. But during that period, those $1,000 actually went to the school called Russ up in Huntsville. But when state gained control, they weren't necessarily concerned about the name of the school, followed the dollar. The $1,000 went to Russ. But they looked at Russ was already established before the legislative bill was creating in 1873. Well, when Democrats regained control, they said, we didn't create a school. We just simply gave $1,000 to a school that was already established. But as a strategy to take Northern and Republican support out of the state Democratic stronghold, they created the school. Council would be head of this school, and he was demonized for doing so. If we can fast forward it to the Second Morale Act.
You say demonized now, that was by even in the black community because there was a split because, okay, you want to speak to that?
He was demonized from the black benefactors who supported and were benefactors of the Russ School. Russ was the first school in Huntsville, so quite naturally, the blacks elite attended that school. But when council established the school, support left Russ and went to this school, and it caused a split, not only educationally, throughout the church, and throughout the black community. And when we get to the Morale Act, we fast forward in 1887, just as a setup before the Morale Act. Dr. Council, he buys a first class ticket to ride a train. He sits in first class. Long story short, he's thrown off the class, he's thrown off the train, he's beat on the train and thrown off prematurely. 2 months later, students at A&M, they do the same thing. Without much deliberating, council's giving he's giving a choice. You can stay as head of the school, but we're going to shut it down by the next legislative session, or you can resign to save the school. Council resigns. He's replaced by a gentleman by the name of Peter Clark. Peter Clark leaves the school for 1 year. Council gets his job back. As soon as he gets his job back, he loses the Slater Fund. The Slater Fund was funds set aside for African Americans for the quest of industrial arts, or industrial mechanical training. This sets up the land grant ploy of the Second Morale Act, 1890. So it gives additional funds to who's going to be the designated school, A&M, Tuskegee, or Alabama State. Council desperately needs these funds because he just lost the Slater Fund because he was demonized for standing up for social justice, civil rights by buying a first-class ticket. So he desperately need the funds. Booker T. Washington, he writes a letter to Dr. Council saying, let's not squabble over the funds. Let's agree to divide them equally among Patterson's, Alabama State, Tuskegee, as well as Dr. Council. Because Council knew Washington just received these Slater funds, he declined it. And he petitioned that we should go after these funds solely. Council and others thought that he was at a disadvantage because he was too far away from the legislature, where Alabama State and Tuskegee could lobby more efficiently by being in Montgomery, Council being 4 hours away on a car, who knows how far on a train. But Council had a big joker in his back pocket with our Northern Congress representative, Joe Wheeler. Joe Wheeler is a Confederate general, but they had a personal relationship. And because of that, Dr. Council and Alabama A&M will be the land grant designation for the 1890 Second Morale Act.
Well, on a lighter note, there's one similarity between Council and Washington. They both got a good whipping by some people. Now, we never found out why Mr. Washington was almost beat to death in New York. Go back and read the story. But we know that Reverend Dr. Council resorted to carrying what caliber was it? I think it was a 45.
45.
Yes, sir, Colt. So, and he used it on at least one occasion. I know y'all ain't read the book. Go read the book. Come on now. So anyway, getting back to more, it's Founders Day. Attorney Calloway and Mr. Harris, day before yesterday, the Supreme Court was deliberating the districts and the way they've been drawn and whether race-based is a variable that should be used. So, of course, they voted 6-3 against state of Louisiana. And now there's implications across the South. Our legislature and people here are calling for a emergency session to redraw the districts in Alabama, which means that Sewell and Figures districts may be in danger per how they draw the lines. But you know about the Bakke case in the 70s and race-based admissions to medical school, and then later the Ayers case in Mississippi in the 80s and 90s. I happened to be able to write a little bit in the Ayers case because I was working for Clinton Bristow at the time, and everything I wrote got taken out. That's another discussion for another time, where you want too much, you're asking too much, and so it's a case where we get what we can get. And so we wind up with a $500 or so million settlement. Attorney Alvin Chambliss argued the case, and many saw it as a win. And then, of course, you're very familiar with the Knight Sims case and the resolution here. I think there are both some positives and negatives. So what do you see as learning outcomes for us from those, particularly two cases, Ayers and Chambliss, both positive and negative, and where we are today, given what just happened at the Supreme Court and what may happen across the country with us losing anywhere from 12 to 24 districts potentially for the CBC? Yeah.
I think there are a couple of things. It's going to be a long walk, but the drink of water is tall, I swear. So if you go back, right, so Bakke and the Ayers case were functionally like happening and beginning at that same time, right? So the Bakke case is the one where they say that race-conscious admissions can't be used as a sort of, to make up for a legacy of discrimination, but they could only be used for a sort of diversity, this sort of a vague idea of diversity, and that's why some of the numbers that, the most rejective institutions in the country, the places that reject the most students, have sort of stayed pretty similar with their enrollments of black students. But the Ayers case, right, the Black Mississippians for Higher Education, 1975, they file a lawsuit, and they say, you all have not lived up to your responsibility to provide us with adequate facilities on our campuses, right? You look at the science labs kind of across the campus, you look at some of the buildings. I think one of the ways to best understand this is actually in the state of North Carolina, where in 1978, David Tatel, he was the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the old Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. He goes to North Carolina and he's like, I want to show you all like a picture of what this disparity in funding looks like. And he says, I just want you to think about one thing, and that's these autoclaves, right? High-tech pressure cookers that they use to sterilize laboratory equipment. Look at North Carolina State University. They have 40 of them. Look at North Carolina A&T. They have 3. And that is like the baseline of this discrepancy between these predominantly white land grants and these black land grants. And so they file this lawsuit. They're trying to get the sort of trying to eliminate the unnecessary program duplication, right? Say A&M starts an astronomy program and UAH is like, well, actually, we want to start one as well, right? That's unnecessary program duplication. It's creating the same program in the same town and just siphons away students and resources from those institutions. And so what you end up getting, right, the case goes on for 30 years. It's back and forth in court. Even Clarence Thomas is like, is there not a difference between an institution that's been discriminated against and one that has not? And Mississippi's lawyer is, kind of plays dumb and says, no, because now we have genuine freedom of choice as opposed to sort of looking at that legacy of discrimination. You get $503 million over 17 years in Mississippi, split between the 3 HBCUs. I want to put that in context because $500 million is the amount of money that the University of Mississippi can make in 5 years of private donations. And so if you're trying to make up for a legacy of discrimination with the same amount of money that the predominantly white institution can make in 5 years, you're doing it wrong. But within that, I think that particularly as it relates to these later, these kind of recent decisions, I think the point that I want to make here is that without federal protections, like federal protections have largely been the things that have ensured our civil rights. It hasn't been the state saying, you guys, you're doing great, keep doing great. It's been the federal government saying, you all need to do better. And so when you think about the rollbacks that we've seen in the last few years, whether that's rolling back the enforcement capacity of the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights and sort of firing the sweep of civil rights lawyers in places like Cleveland or Philadelphia and Dallas and functionally eliminating all of their field offices, alongside this idea that we're going to redraw maps in a way that will restrict some of those minority districts. It paints a picture of a sort of federal structure that is not prepared to protect people in the same way that it has been prepared to protect people since 1964 and 1965. And so if you sort of consider that, I think institutions that continue to push forward and acknowledge that truth and that reality. I think we've seen a lot of elite institutions kind of get scared and kind of cow from actually sort of being forceful about some of this. But yeah, I think that's the general gist, right? That removing those federal protections, sort of the Supreme Court, which has consistently stripped some of the gains that we've done right after you talked a little bit in your book about the slaughterhouse cases and kind of coming out of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, the civil rights laws that were sort of rolled back by the Supreme Court. We're seeing a similar pulling back of those gains that we've made over the last 60 years since America became a multiracial democracy.
So everybody is correct. I would say from my perspective, Mr. President, you asked a couple of specific questions. What did those cases teach us? And what are the learnings and the similarities between 1876 and today? First part of that question, what do those cases teach us? Who is going to, has been to, wants to go to law school, particularly the undergrads? Or there was a thing called OWLs when I was in school, older, wiser law students. So if you want to go again, listen up. But particularly if you want to go, this is how this thing works. The law is determined and cases are won based on something called case precedent. Right? So you have to look at the existing cases out there, put them together in a hodgepodge, not using chat, but your own brain and perhaps an organizing tool, and try to put together the case precedent. What is the rule that comes from these cases that governs what we're asking this court to do today? So, if you look at the civil rights cases in the higher education context, we have some very important learnings that we have to take away. 1890 institutions, right? 2 of them during the time where we have IPED's data, because the data is what's driving all of this. Ain't nobody coming to a court talking about you owe us and we can't prove it. No, we can show you every quarter, every year, every legislative session to the penny what was improperly allocated. Some call it stolen, but the good word is misallocation, right? But we can tell you every year what was misallocated that should have came to Huntsville and either went to other institutions within the state of Alabama, right? I'm sorry, specifically should have come to Normal, right?
Yes.
So ain't nobody guessing when we say $527 million. So how do we lay that data alongside the case history? Well, the case history shows that 2 states of those 19 never underfunded. So good for you, Delaware and Ohio, for not underfunding Delaware State and Central State in Ohio. There are 2 very important cases. There is Ayers versus Fordyce, which is the Mississippi case, which results in the $503 million that went to the conglomerate of HBCUs in Mississippi. Ayers versus Fordyce said that the state failed to maintain a desegregated higher education system. Why is desegregated higher education, what case mandates desegregated education in America? Brown versus Board of Education. You guys have heard of this, right? 1954. Brown versus Board of Education mandates desegregation in education in America. A few years later, it was held to apply also to higher ed. So the states have this ongoing responsibility, right? Since at least 1972 when it was applied to higher education. Very important case. Ayers versus Fordyce is the first case that's brought, and it pertains, the rules, the constitutional ruling pertains to all of the country, right? So that's a very important case. The other very important case for our purposes here is Knight versus Alabama, because it shows that a consent decree currently exists between Alabama A&M, the University of Alabama, Huntsville, the University of Alabama, and the state of Alabama. I was SJ president a long time ago. And sometimes you just get a call from the president and say, hey, come down, get in the car, we got somewhere to go. One of these days, I got a call from Dr. Gibson, perhaps his chief of staff, delightful fellow, I don't remember his name. He said, Callaway, get up, we got somewhere to be. And we went across town to UAH, and we went to the annual luncheon celebrating the consent decree. I didn't know what that meant, right? But I remember Dr. Gibson and our side of administrators, and I don't know their president's name, but they side of administrators, we wore maroon, they wore blue, we were much sharper, and we talked about the programs, and we got this program, and y'all got that program, and everybody shook hands. I did not realize that that was the annual consent decree that the court said we had to have to make sure that our institutions remained equal. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But in the state of Alabama, we have long since been operating under consent decree that came from the ruling of Knight versus Alabama. So we do have the ongoing responsibility from Ayers versus Fordyce and Knight versus Alabama to maintain properly funded and non-segregated systems of education. However, can I win that case at the state legislature, as deep red as it is with this current universe of Republican legislatures? Probably not. So there's a third case that's extremely important and extraordinarily instructive. We saw that Ayers versus Fordyce shows us that it's possible and shows us what the legal blueprint is. Knight versus Alabama establishes that Alabama currently operates under the same consent decree to mandate desegregation in higher education. 2020, Maryland Coalition for Higher Education versus whoever the Secretary of State of Maryland is. What happened in the state of Maryland? I live in the state of Maryland. I love living in the state of Maryland. When you ever move to the DMV and it's a whole bunch of bulldogs, Jamal Ali will tell you, it's a whole bunch of us in the DMV. When you get to the DMV, you realize that it ain't too much change geographically since the Confederacy, such that they live in Virginia. And when you decide to get outside of the city, they live in Virginia and we live in Maryland. What does that mean? When we live in Maryland, I go to Annapolis to the state legislature on occasion. What does that look like? I got a black governor. I got a black attorney general. I have a black majority legislature. and I have Democrats who control that legislature. So they had the wisdom to look internally in Maryland in 2020 and say, we have the political infrastructure in place, and we have the iPads and historical data that shows that our 1890 institution, University of Maryland at Eastern Shore, as well as Bowie State and several other institutions, were intentionally and shorted during this time period. So let's look to ourselves and handle it as a legislature. And it went to the court, it was not contested, and the result was about $577 million collectively to those institutions to make up for it. So that case is extremely important to me because it shows that the states have demonstrated ability to fix it outside of litigation and outside of a contentious process, because it ain't no dispute what happened, right? So we can settle this the easy way, or we can get into some litigation posture stuff, right? I don't think that was from a movie. They said it a little differently. We can say,
Well,
But-
they had the votes.
we have to have the votes,
That's
but
key.
that is the advantage of living in a state in which you have the proper political infrastructure. We don't have that in Alabama. However, we do have federal defendants, because the United States Department of Education, United States Department of Justice, and the United States Department of Agriculture are as responsible as the states who executed the underfunding. Why? Because multiple Supreme Court precedent establishes that the feds have a duty for oversight, for
correct.
desegregation oversight. That's why in 1954, when Brown versus Board of Education happens, many schools in the South, particularly one example in my mind, I'm talking about high schools, right? Education in high schools. They don't actually desegregate until the 70s, when Nixon forces them to desegregate via federal troops. Because in the language in Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court orders schools to integrate with, quote, with all deliberate speed. They use the word deliberate to mean slow. But as Thurgood Marshall reminds us, justice delayed is justice denied. So, we have the litigation model, that's in Mississippi. We have the consent decree, that's in Knight. We have a compromise model that comes out of Maryland. We have the ability to do all three. Perhaps we don't have the political will in Montgomery, but the blueprint is there, and what we're currently asking is for the feds to do the Maryland model themselves. By the way, I'm also working on the Maryland model in Virginia, where you have a blue legislature, a blue governor, and a blue attorney general, and Virginia State University. So we think we can get it done one of these ways.
So let's dovetail into that, because we do have to look at the weather. We do want to get to the gravesite ceremony. But listen, okay, Maryland, $570 some odd million, so you're able to negotiate a vet school for UMES. Morgan State becomes a research urban center, and you're able to provide resources for infrastructure for that, as well as faculty and expertise. And then Bowie State, it really gets ramped up infrastructure-wise. So, but the question for us becomes then, and you talked about this on our beloved On the Hill podcast. That was a strategy for Maryland. You talked about a strategy for Virginia. Let's backdoor to the South, right? And so we've got to look at what we should or should not do as a collective, alumni, board of trustees, cabinet, myself, what we should or should not do, and can you kind of reference the Georgia and Florida filings as well, and what happened and what could happen with us?
No, thank you for asking that. I'll be brief. It's gonna be hard, but I'll be brief. Georgia and Florida don't let our people, our cousins who happen to have a law degree, get out there and file something that is not proper and not right, because what happens is those will get dismissed. That sets bad precedent, and none of us have the right to come back for those sums of money which were rightly owed. That's what happened in Georgia, and that's what happened in Florida. And I know those guys who filed those lawsuits. Those are car accident lawyers. This ain't for no legal fees. This is for our civil rights and history, and they're two distinct different propositions. So that's why it's taken a long time to put these matters together, and we believe we'll be successful because we have the proper petitions. You also asked, what should we be doing? we should be doing two things. Number one, you have to litigate or be prepared to litigate. The great civil rights battles of our time have been won in the federal courts through the use of federal civil procedure, full stop. So I think we have to be prepared to litigate. We're prepared to do so right now. But I think the second thing we have to do, and this is where there's similarities between today and 1876, is the law can be passed that says this is what they're supposed to do. But you have to go and force the legislature to implement and properly oversee what they said we are going to do. This country has never lived up to its promise outside of being forced to do so by concerned citizens who latch on to one single issue and will not let it go until the legislature executes properly. That's on the state level, that's on the federal level, and that's on the local level. So Dr. Council was aware that there were grants. He was aware that there was a Morrill Act, but he had to see it through to fruition to make sure that this school was established and would be set up to thrive. Now, you may see from time to time, and this is when we get into the, it gets tight, right? You may see from time to time that Dr. Wims contributed to somebody who doesn't agree with mine. We've seen this, right? Dr. Wims is a steward of this institution. He has to have a relationship with the budget chair and the appropriations chair and the finance chair. And if he does not maintain those relationships, I would suggest that he is derelict in his duty. And he ain't derelict in his duty. He is an excellent president who has guided this ship to higher heights. So when you see that, understand that he's doing exactly what he asked me we should be doing. The second leg, first is litigation. The second leg is you got to be in Montgomery. We have a vice president of government affairs. Didn't exist when I was here. Extraordinarily important position because this is the person who's responsible for understanding who the money is, where the money is, who controls it, and how we bring it back here. So you all have to participate as citizen lobbyists, citizen advocates on behalf of this institution. If we care about it as much as we say we do, we have to participate in Washington, D.C., and in Montgomery. We have to educate ourselves on knowing what the pots of money are and what programs we have today that can be proper vehicles for that money being executed. So all of us have a role, and I'm proud to see this administration actively working to do what we're supposed to be doing in Montgomery and in D.C.
So thank you, sir. That's very important. I don't know that people understand that once a case is dismissed with prejudice, particularly filed in federal court, we can't go back.
Can't go back. Can't go back. That's right.
Yeah.
And you think about it, that's what happened in Georgia, and that's what happened in Florida. Florida A&M, $1.2 billion. That's the biggest sum of all of it. It ain't nothing to play with. We don't have $1.2 billion to concede. And so we are hoping that this administration can write a check recognizing that the harm applies to each of the 15 remaining outstanding institutions.
As we close, first I would like to ask all three of you to, make some closing commentary about what the institution means to you, what Reverend Dr. Council means to you. That's two things, institution, Reverend Dr. Council, your experiences here, number three. But in that conversation, also kind of tell us, what are you optimistic about regarding the future? So we're dealing with your personal past, your personal experience. What are you optimistic about regarding the future of Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical, and what are you pessimistic or concerned about? So either one, just closing.
I'm thinking about a quote from Dr. Council. He says, "In darkness and weary, I'm naked and bare. It was in the midst of these trials when a small boy I walked forth one night, the stars in heaven being my only witness, with tears flowing down my black cheeks, my little hand upraised. If God would help me to become a man, I would do my best to make conditions more favorable for all other little boys and girls in the world." He says this prayer as a young boy, but really it's a covenant between counsel and his creator that if given the opportunity, he could envision a day where the place that actually would be a place of trauma for him. Because knowing a little bit about Dr. Council's history, he's born in Fayetteville, Slave traders take them to Richmond, Virginia. Then they bring them here to Huntsville. Not only here to Huntsville, but literally here on this campus. The block we know it was a famous slave trail where slaves would travel from the Carolinas and Virginia and to be sold here at Green Bottom Inn. So he sold his family, but he turns this trauma into a place of matriculation. So to me, counsel, he embodies being able to take little or nothing and turn it into greatness. So I'm optimistic that because we had a covenant with counsel created as a little boy and it sustained us for 150 years, I believe that covenant is still intact and it will sustain us for 150 years and beyond.
You know, I mentioned Ms. Wilkinson at the beginning. You know, I got here in January 2010. Didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of be a political science major, maybe. It was sort of up in the air. Then I took a history class with Dr. Green in Drake Hall, and after class one day, he told me to come back to his office, and he shared an office with Ms. Wilkinson. And Ms. Wilkinson, there was this little back room in the back of Drake on the left that was the copy room. And it had all of the books that, you know, they were either used books or old books or whatever they might be, but they were just sitting in that back room. And I often, you know, I got a job in the department back when it was the behavioral sciences, and I used to go back there and make copies for her and Dr. Allen and you know, Douglas Turner, Mr. Turner, pretty often. And when I go back there, I just start picking up books, and I just start flipping through them and seeing what was in there. And it's how I kind of fell in love. Between that and I come back and I talk to Ms. Wilkinson about him, I fell in love with philosophy there. And fell in love with the sort of art of thinking. And when I was reading your book, I was thinking about, you know, Dr. Counsel as a man. I think oftentimes we think of great people and we say, oh, they were great. I could never reach those heights. I could never do what they did. But what you have to remember is that they were people. James Madison was 34 years old when he was sitting out looking at the Blue Ridge Mountains and saying, what about this Virginia plan? Right. And thinking about freedom and thinking about our Constitution when he could have just looked down and seen 200 to 300 enslaved people working his ground at any given time. So the reminder that Dr. Counsel was a man, the reminder that I'm on a campus and I was able to learn from a person who did not have to pour into me, but who did pour into me, and that I was able to take that and go forward. I think that is what keeps me optimistic about this institution. It is the professors, it is the people who really care about the students, who care that they think for themselves, who care that they flourish in life. Because she spent a lot of hours with me, Miss Allen spent a lot of hours with me, just thinking about what could come next, what I could do next. I think the only pessimism that I have is that federally, statewide, people forget that they have moral choice. People forget that the things that they do aren't decided in advance. That you can do whatever you would like to do. What is in your power to do, it's like reading the Stoics, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever is in your power to do, that is what you should do. And you can always change. You can wake up and you can be different that next day. I think the thing that I come to be pessimistic about is I don't think that enough people understand that idea that they can change, and in changing themselves, change the things around them.
Amen.
Amen.
You know, what makes me most optimistic is that the evidentiary record suggests, as both of my brothers have explained here, that we have always survived, and not survived, but thrived. You know, yes, it does not come for free, and yes, the bill and price of leadership and having what we've had and building what we've built, really all you earn is the right to continue fighting to build it and maintain it, but 151 years later, we've yet to lose that fight. Right? We've yet to be defeated. And there have been 25 years ago when I was here, and 40 years before that when my mother was here, and throughout the history of our institutions, there have been and there are ongoing efforts to eliminate these institutions. None of them have ever prevailed, not one, right? That doesn't say that every school that ever existed exists in the same fashion or continues to exist, but the efforts to quash the spirit of the working class black person educated at the 1890, which exists to educate the children of the slave without regard to selectivity or ability to pay, those efforts have always fallen short. Not one of them has won. And so we have no reason to believe that we will not succeed in this or in any other generation. But we should recognize that that success comes with a sustained and continued and committed effort from all of us. What I am extraordinarily excited about in this particular moment is the extraordinary and competent leadership we have, the extraordinary and invigorated alumni we have, but also this technology and information we have allows us to look beyond normal to Pine Bluff and see our cousins wearing yellow and blue, or to Orangeburg and see our cousins wearing maroon and navy, or to Delaware and see them wearing powder blue and red, and understand that we come from the same family tree. We exist in the same lineage of the institutions who were built to educate us and have sustained us for all these years. The history of the educated African American traces directly to the 1890 institution. This remains where educated black folks go to college. We have yet to fail, and Alabama A&M has always led the way. So there's lots to be excited about, and I am humbled and excited to help remain in the fight and do what I can from where we are with what we have.
Okay, family, we can do better than that. Let's give this group a real clap of appreciation. And I want to personally thank all of you for attending class today, for being on time and staying throughout the session. We came to learn, and now we depart to, and service is. So in the spirit of that, I would like to, on behalf of our institution, to give these three gentlemen a little token of our appreciation. And where's our photographer? Right there. So if y'all would bring them forward. So to each of you, this is for Mr. Calloway. I know that you'll get your hands a little heavy. Wow. My friend, Mr. Davis. Give him a round of applause. He's an agri-con major, and he has recently retired from the United States Department of Agriculture. And on top of that, he and Mr. Calloway are accountants. They're going to read his marriage. Thank you. Let's give them another warm round of applause. Our brave and loyal sons, keep up the struggle, keep up the fight. We all play a role. Play your position. And don't get outside of that. I think that is what Attorney Calloway was saying. Play your position. Talk to somebody before you say something. This is a very dangerous time. You saw what happened at Tennessee State. We will not make that mistake. That's why I have these gentlemen in my consigliaries. I have advisors who say what to do and what not to do, and so most times they won't even give me the mic because they know I might go left. So I appreciate these gentlemen for allowing me to play Tavis Smiley and what's my other friend, Roland Martin today. So thank you all for listening. Now I'm going to ask our National Alumni President, Mr. Mike Miller, to come forward and introduce our Alumni of the Year. Mr. Miller. Another captain.
Hey, I ain't gonna say the name. Good evening. I should say afternoon. I won't be long. In your program, you have the bio of Miss Natasha Reese. She is a very special Alumni of the Year, and we're gonna shorten this up real good. And I wanna point something out as we talk about her. She's from Birmingham, Alabama, and one thing that of note, she came to Alabama A&M in 2010. And I'm gonna say after attending UAH. I'm gonna say that again. After getting her BS degree out of PWI across the street. And I want to jump down to the bottom. Natasha has been very diligent since joining the Alumni Association and supporting the university and supporting the alumni chapter that she belongs to, Atlanta Metro. She's done about everything that I think you can do in an alumni chapter, but since 2020. And Natasha has served at the Alumni Association on several committees, but of note as part of the technology committee, where she supports everything that we do with respect to promoting parties, to putting on conferences, our annual meeting. And that's a lot of time that she puts into this. So you can read about her and all her professional accolades, but I wanted to point out to all of us, service is what makes this machine work, and the ability and willingness to volunteer and give of your time and your talent. Your treasure come. So young alumni, I challenge each of you as you take this, read about Natasha and be the Natasha of our dream to help the vision stay alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and congratulations to Ms. Reese on that prestigious Alumni of the Year award. Now we are very honored to recognize another one of our own in the awarding of the Richard D. Morrison Award. The recipient of this award possesses and demonstrates through his or her dedication and commitment a quest to better humankind through civic engagement, community service, and education. This year's recipient is Mrs. Cynthia Crutchfield. And would you please come forward to accept your award? Hold this a minute. As she's coming forward, I would like to personally thank her because she's not only a contributor to her alma mater in this institution, but as CEO of Innovate Alabama, she was able to convince some folk to award us somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000 to develop an entrepreneurship center on our campus in one of our facilities. Give her a hand of applause. This is important because I've met with various leaders in North Huntsville, and oftentimes I come away with more questions than answers, and so I get frustrated. And so I said, look, let's do something. If y'all can't build businesses, we'll give you a process by which to do so. In that entrepreneurship center, we'll be able to do business plans, help you to get financing, and give you plans and sustainability of your business. And so this is important, and it will be right beside our new medical clinic, which we've partnered with Huntsville Hospital. And then Dr. Talley and staff will be doing a dental clinic in collaboration partnership with Dr. Nisha Daniels and Anthony Daniels. And so in this corridor, we're doing our part. And hopefully we can get some partners to help to continue to develop and expand and enhance the influence of North Huntsville. So thank you so much for being first and doing what you did to help us to do that. Thank you so much, and thank you to her and her family members, and we will continue to make every effort to help to develop businesses in collaboration with our Entrepreneurship Center. Now, please join me in recognizing our Award of Excellence recipients. This is a time we pay special recognition to our faculty and staff and employees who are the most valuable assets. Our university's core values form the basis of the way we all work together at A&M. Student-centeredness, excellence in all aspects of operations, integrity and ethical professional practices, engagement, expanding our reach and impact through partnerships and collaboration, customer service. Customer service. Let me say that one more time. Customer. Okay, let's do it one more time. Customer. All right, God ain't through with us yet, Callaway. We're working on it. Global awareness and astuteness, diversity, and accountability. We're fortunate to have dedicated faculty and staff members, and these awards are given to our exemplary faculty and staff members as determined and recommended by their peers. Here's the kicker. Each recipient will receive a certificate and a $500 honorarium, and the overall employee of the year for both faculty and staff will receive a $1,000 honorarium. It's just a small token of our appreciation for what you do. Dr. John Jones, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, will present the Excellence in Teaching Award, followed by Dr. Majid Dweek, Vice President of Research and Sponsored Programs, who will introduce the Excellence in Scholarship, Research, Creative Activity, and other professional contributions, and I will present the overall award for excellence in teaching, research, and service. Dr. Jones. Get these books and read them. Don't just put them on your table. Read.
To stand up this entrepreneurship center, and her assistance with this is just invaluable. And she has alerted us that she will continue to be involved with the center in its operational phase. So we're excited about that. That's right. I'm here to present the Excellence in Teaching Awards, and this year's winner is Ms. Dolores Baker, instructor of electrical engineering. Please come to the stage to accept your award. Yes, sir. The next two recipients comes from our mathematics department, and I think it's most fitting that they be recognized for the hard work that they did relative to mathematics pathways and leading the state with this effort, along with our expert math educator, Dr. Khadid. So this is just a very fitting award. And the Excellence in Faculty Advising and Mentor, this year's winner is Dr. Andrew Pham, Assistant Professor of Mathematics. This next award is an excellence in service to the university community. And this year's winner is Dr. Yin-Soo Wu, Associate Professor of Mathematics.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce for this year the Excellence in Scholarship, Research, Creative Activity, and other professional contributions. This year's winner is Dr. Emerald Jones, Assistant Professor of Social Sciences. Please come forward.
All righty. She and I always tease, she's a graduate of the Hill, Howard University. And I have to tell her that they don't sit on a hill, that we actually got some hills here. This is the hill, not Howard. All right? And so we go back and forth, but we're very honored to have her and to have young professors that are working with our students in the way that they are. So now, I said that to say we got another one that we want to recognize for the overall award in excellence in teaching, research, and service. And this year's winner for the overall award is none other than Dr. Samantha Strawn, Associate Professor in Curriculum, Teaching, Educational Leadership. Next, we will have our staff awards of excellence by division, beginning with Dr. Brock Talley, Vice President of Student Affairs, followed by Dr. John Jones, then Vice President and CFO Carlton Spellman. Then I will present for athletics on behalf of A.D. Bryant and the Office of the President, Athletic Compliance, Title III, General Counsel, Marketing, Communication, Advancement, which Kylie Nash, Dr. Nash will help me to do so. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, President Williams. For the Division of Student Affairs, this year's winner is Ms. Angel Lee.
The Staff Award of Excellence for the Division of Academic Affairs goes to my executive assistant, Ms. Patura Burke. Very good. Ms. Burke is the hardest working person on the campus because she has to assist me. Yes, and she won.
Good afternoon. For the Division of Business and Finance, this year's winner is Mr. Marshall Chimbezi, Director of Bulldog Transportation.
I'd just like to say that the millions of dollars of infrastructure that we're bringing in from both the state LDOT and the federal Department of Transportation for our electric buses, electric chargers, all of our alternative energy projects to include the solar projects are led by Mr. Marshall Chimbezi. So please give him another warm round of applause. Okay, in the absence of A.D. Bryant, I will present the winner for athletics, and this year's winner is Mr. Brian Howard, who is, he's not here. So we're going to deposit his check into the foundation and send him one of those nice thank you letters. Now, the Office of the President, which includes Athletic Compliance, Title III, General Counsel, Marketing, Communication Advancement, and the Foundation, and I think that this is another cake that was baked. I had nothing to do with it, but this year's winner is Miss Erica Baldwin. Please come forward. We have old saying, only at an HBCU. Dr. Nash, please come forward as I present the overall staff winner. This year's winner is Ramat Nico Heron, or Haran. Congratulations. We're very happy to be able to present these awards. This young man, he's always ready for the call, and he really helps us with our software and hardware application. Give him another warm round of applause. Do this again for me. Please give Attorney Calloway, Mr. Harris, and Mr. Davis another warm round of applause. Thank you to Professor Horace Carney and our choir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Give them a warm round of applause. The Founders Day Committee, led by Marketing, Communication, and Advancement, and our POC for Everything alumni. Give her a round of applause, Ms. Sandra Stubbs, and everybody who had something to do. Please join me in recognizing the members of our Board of Trustees, to include, I almost was about to say it, but I'm not. President Jeanette Jones. You're the president of the Faculty Senate. Yeah. President Onyebuchi Egwu. Did I do okay? No. Also, members of Alabama legislature here, and any elected city officials, particularly Huntsville, any elected county, state officials, please raise your hand. If anybody here is an elected official, please raise your hand. Thank you for coming. The President's Cabinet, would you please stand? Although you've been recognized, please stand and be recognized again. All Associate Vice President, Deans, and other administrators, with the exception of Kadi, who's been showing off already. Everybody else, please stand and be recognized. We're the hardest working, most productive faculty in all of HBCU land and all of higher education. Would you please stand and be recognized? While you're standing with a dedicated staff, hard-working staff, would you also stand and be recognized? Now will our most precious jewel, the students, the heartblood, the heartbeat of this institution, would you stand and be recognized? Let us hear you. There you go. All retirees, anybody here who's drawing a pension from Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical, please stand and be recognized, because we want our 10% back. That's it. All right. Thank you all. Now we're all alums of Normal Hills. Would you please stand and be recognized? All alums. All alums. Outstanding. All alum, please remain standing, and everybody else join them as we now close out by the singing of the university hymn. Immediately following that, we will move to the grave site in front of our eternal flame for the graveside ceremony. And please remain standing for the recessional. Dr. Carney.